All right, Brianna.
Hi.
Brianna, where are you from originally? Where'd you grow up?
Originally I was born in Phoenix, Arizona, but when I was 6, my family moved out to Massachusetts, so I'm from Massachusetts.
Tell me about your family.
My family is a little bit complicated. I have a big family, all sides of the family. Some of us are extremely close, and some of us, of course, like most families, not so much anymore.
That happens.
Yeah, it does.
What was the roughest part of your childhood?
I would have to say my whole childhood was rough. We had moved to Massachusetts because my mother at the time was dying of AIDS, and Massachusetts is where she's from. So she knew she was going to die. She was given a certain amount of time. So they decided, my father and her, with me and my little brother, decided to move back to Massachusetts so that she could spend some time with her family before she passed away. She's the youngest of 9 siblings, so she wanted to get some time with them beforehand.
Did your mom live a lifestyle that was risky or?
Yeah, she did. Kind of all started from her mom, my grandmother. She kind of like just left in the middle of the night when my mom was 3 years old and took off. So the family was then scattered around from there, around the state, different foster homes. And of course, all the horror stories you hear from like the 60s and 70s, happened to some of my aunts and uncles and my mom too. I believe at one point my aunts had taken care of her, but my mom too often got caught up in the wrong crowd and, found herself with drugs and the party crowd, and a lot of things happened from her. And that's how she actually ended up developing AIDS, was from a partner, boyfriend at the time, who gave her HIV first. And then she moved to Arizona with some friends, and yeah.
And did that finally take her life?
The AIDS, yeah. Well, the final cause of death was pneumonia, but yes, it was the AIDS.
And so you spent a lot of time with your dad, or?
Yeah, well, when she was sick, my father, he had worked a lot, and she would stay home. Usually she'd be napping on the couch. It was worse, of course, when we moved to Massachusetts, because this was when I was 5, and by the time I was a little over 6, she had passed away. So that last time was rough because she was in and out of the hospital. We had a cousin who would come over and babysit us sometimes. She was asleep on the couch a lot, being tired, and just not able to really do anything until she was put on hospice. At that time, they had put a hospital bed in her room, and we had nurses' visits there. Her health kind of deteriorated even more. She lost a lot of weight. She couldn't walk. I remember being like 5 years old and seeing my father like carrying her from the bedroom to the bathroom. She even had like a little bell she would ding when she needed something. And then there came a point where she couldn't see. And I remember specifically she passed away maybe like a week or so before I started first grade. And I had gotten a new dress and she couldn't see it. So I remember taking the dress to her. It was like a nice, bottom half was like black, had like a little plastic black flower and some, I think stripes or something on the top. I remember laying it down on her hospice bed. I remember her she had her eyes closed. She couldn't see at all anyways. And I remember her just feeling the material, then feeling the little flower. And I don't remember exactly what she said, but she liked the dress and she thought it was good for my first day of school, and because she always had me in dresses. So that was one of I think the last interactions I remember having with her, because it wasn't, a few days after that is when she passed away.
How did having your mom in that situation affect you as a young girl?
I think that because she was even sick, the fact that she was sick beforehand, and with my father working a lot, I had to take on a lot of responsibility and take care of even my younger brother. They always called him my little shadow because I loved being a big sister. I love it. And so I felt like a big girl, and, you know, I would help get anything ready, like diaper bag ready, or watching him and taking care of him while my mom was asleep. So being a young girl at that time, I didn't still completely understand everything. Like, I knew she was going to be leaving. I remember making her a picture of Christmas time because I knew she wasn't going to be here for Christmas. I remember rolling it up and putting it in her casket because I was like, I know she's not going to be here for Christmas, so I'm going to say Merry Christmas. So I understood it, but not in much of a, like, more than that as a child probably would. It's kind of like she died, but there was a lot of times where, you know, she was already asleep a lot. She was already in the hospital a lot. And my father told me years later that she tried not to get too close to us in a motherly way, because she knew what was going to happen, and her fear of making it harder for when she did pass away.
In your teenage years, tell me about them.
After my mom passed away, you know, you kind of, as a child, you're like, okay, you don't think about what's next. You just kind of go with it, but you don't think that things are going to get worse from that. And things started to get worse from that. She passed away August 29th of 1997. By December, my father was already dating somebody else. My brother started preschool as his preschool teacher assistant. And by the following year, she had moved in. And then by December of that following year, 1998, is when they had gotten married. I was excited though, like, because I didn't quite understand still the death. And, you know, my father was like, well, you don't have to call her mom. You can call her by your name. And then me and my brother were like, oh, we'll call her mom because she was, like, so nice. And we were excited because it was just like having somebody there, like a mother there, and somebody to be with us. And, you know, she was wonderful. But things started to slowly get worse. Within a couple of years, everything went from, like, this is great, like how it is, to what's going on. She started to get mentally and verbally abusive to me and my little brother. She had another one of my brothers, 2000, he was born. And I think after that is when it kind of got worse. She told me at one point that it was because of postpartum depression, but I don't want to say is this from it or not, but she treated me and my brother like we were, like, garbage. I would take care of the family. I take care of all the laundry, and I was like 9 years old. And that was carrying, like, a big tote. So I, like, live in the projects. I have to go outside down these stairs to go into another part of the apartment complex. And, but wasn't allowed to do me and my brother's laundry. It was just their laundry. I'd make dinner, full course dinner, be doing all the dishes, doing everything, taking care of my baby brother and my brother. My other brother, the one that we shared the same mom with, is like 2.5, 3 years younger than me. So he was younger. And I've always felt like she treated him worse, and that maybe she just treated me better because I was taking care of her other kid. But she neglected him a lot. We weren't allowed out of our bedrooms. This is over the course of years. Like, weren't allowed out of our bedrooms unless there was a reason to. We weren't allowed to use the bathroom unless we asked. Get up out of bed unless we asked. Nothing to eat or drink unless we asked. If we try to eat something, we get severely punished by my father, which usually consists of being whipped by the belt. Some people will say, like, oh, it's like an old school thing, but it was a little more than that. She would tell on us, like, almost giddy, like, oh, you never guess what your daughter did today. And it'd be like, I rolled my eyes. Like, maybe it's because I just got done making a bottle and making dinner and sitting here doing dishes for an hour and I'm tired and I had school all day because now I'm in like 5th or 6th grade. And then at one point he'd be like, all right, go get the belt. So my brother and I, whether it's him and I at the same time or him or myself, would have to go and find the belt. And then when he was ready, he'd meet us in his room and he would close the window and shut the door like it did anything when you're in the projects and you're in the middle apartment. But he would always start off with, all right, drop your drawers. So we would be bare bottom. And he was 6'2", did martial arts, maintenance, active person. And he would just start whipping us with the belt and talking like the full back. And then just, it'd be more than like a couple of times. It'd be something where I think the most I counted was like 17 times, where enough where just your body and sides and legs, everything's just welted and bruised, and you have to go to school the next day and not act like the metal seats were just hurting you so much at that time. There would just be violence if like when I say I tried to take food, one time he held like a knife to my fingers and dug into it. I think I took a strawberry because I was hungry, but that wasn't allowed. They always had like cups of juice or water around. I would try to sneak a little sip. Or when I was allowed to go to the bathroom, I would try to sneak a little bit of water, but sometimes it'd be like, why is the water running? We weren't taught hygiene, so it wasn't normal for me to run the water. I wasn't taught to wash my hands after use the bathroom or how to really take care of myself. So with that going on, from 11 to 13, my father started to sexually abuse me. It was in the summer. I remember being like some summer program. And it was an almost everyday thing for a while. I remember just being really confused because I didn't understand what was happening. And I didn't even know what it was called or anything like that. I've heard the word like rape, the news. You kind of understand it by the time you're like 12. You hear news stories, you hear whatever. But I always thought that was from a stranger. So I was like, what is this though? Yeah, that happened until I was 13 years old with that, with everything else that was going on too as well.
It was a rough childhood.
Yeah, a little bit.
Like Cinderella on steroids.
Basically, yeah.
In your later teen years, did anything change?
Yeah, so when I was still 12, I had told a best friend of mine of what was going on. I started telling her about the abuse. I remember being in like 7th grade and like we were in the bathroom and like I pulled down the side of my pants a little bit just so she could see the welts. Because briefly before that, my brother had ran away. He was found within like 4 hours. You know, this little kid in like this raincoat, so tiny. It was because we were also like undernourished too. And we always talked about running away, except I was too chicken because I was like, I was in the mom position where like I literally raised the children. Like they eventually like had a daughter as well, my little sister, in 2003. So I was also take care of her too. And I was just too scared because I didn't want to do anything wrong. Like I didn't want to make father mad at me because we're so like manipulated in a way in terms of like, this is our family. Like we don't need to tell anybody's business. A lot of religion was mixed in with that too. Like it was very hypocritical way of living. And when he ran away, my friend, I think this is actually the second time, yeah. My friend, she had seen the welts on him because he went to somebody's house that was like in the same apartment and she knows who we were. She says she saw the welts like on his back. And I said, yeah, it sounds about right. Because we were hit with the belt. I think one time was like the vacuum cleaner cord wire hanger. That time was when my stepmother did it. She started getting physically abusive. She's like, have you ever seen the movie Mommy Dearest? I still haven't because of what she said. I was like, no. Like, she knows. Like, I was like 10 years old. We lived in the same house, 10, 11. And she laughed and said, okay, go get me a wire hanger. And I don't remember what happened after that. My brother remembers there being a wire hanger, but he doesn't remember either. So back to my friend, I told her, and she's like, you need to tell somebody something. I didn't at that time tell her because I wanted him to get in trouble or let everybody know, where I didn't know what I wanted besides just, I want to tell somebody because I feel like I'm dying inside. Like, I know this is wrong. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what to do. So let me just open up to my best friend just to talk about it because I feel so alone. I'm doing all this and carrying all this is impacting me. So after like a couple of months, I just turned 13. It was in March of 2004. A couple weeks after that, we were in school, and then I remember a health teacher. I still remember her just like storming down the hall. Like, I was like, what's going on? I thought I was getting in trouble for something. And she's like, you come here now. And then I saw my friend behind her. She's like, and I was mad at her at first. I didn't understand it then, but I was mad at her because I was like, I trusted you with something. I just wanted to talk to somebody. Like, now I'm going to get in trouble. Like, I'm going to get whipped. I'm going to, like, whatever else happens when I get in trouble, like, that's going to be me now. And because when you get so abused sometimes, at least in my situation, by a parent, even though they treat you a certain way, for myself, I still always wanted their approval. It's like, all right, I did bad. Like, I deserve that punch in the face, or I deserve being choked and slammed up in the wall because I did something wrong. Then afterwards, they apologize. They're like, sorry, oh, it was the way I was raised, or you just got to do this, or let's pray, or let's go to church, or... So I felt like I was the one doing something wrong all the time. But that's kind of what started. I was brought down to the guidance counselor, and then she asked me, is it true with... And I said yes. And it was kind of like, I ended up staying there till like 5 o'clock that night because the police were called, Department of Children and Families were called. They were going to call my father, and I remember freaking out because I was like, fuck, I'm going to be in trouble now. I'm like, please, like, oh my gosh, he's probably mad at me. Like, I didn't care what happened. I was just scared that he was going to be so mad at me and I was going to get in trouble. I did not like getting in trouble. I was considered daddy's girl, is what they called it, as a child. And we were like good kids, and because no one knew what was happening. So from there, you know, started the journey. Like, I went to live with my aunt, maternal aunt. I didn't see her too much as a child, but every time she saw me, she would always say, she's like, if you need anything, she kind of look at me a little longer. And she's like, remember my number. Here it is. She's like, you remember my number? Every single time I saw her. And I did. So when they asked, do you have family to come get you? I said, yes, my aunt. She said years later, she's like, I knew something was wrong. She's like, when you would come over, and she's like, the way you would look and the way you would stare off, she's like, there's something going on in that household. She's like, I didn't know what it was. I just knew there was something, so I had to make sure you knew my phone number. So kind of for the next part of my life kind of just went from after that point.
What's your relationship like now with your dad?
I don't have a relationship with him. When I was taken away, moved to a different town, it was rough. I didn't realize how traumatized and sheltered I was for a while. I was put into therapy, of course, like immediately, in psychiatry. And my family, my mother's side of the family, was so supportive. And I acted out a lot. And I think there was stages of being away from trauma that I kind of, like many other stories you probably hear where people turn to something else, but it's because of the trauma. Because it's kind of like, I don't know what's going on. This was a lot to carry. I was hard on them. I didn't get in too much trouble because I still really wanted to be good, and I knew there was good in me, and I knew I was smart. Like, I was always book smart. I always had my nose in the books and reading and loved people and love helping others and genuinely caring about people. I think that all stems from like having to raise kids so young, being the oldest sister. Never resent any of that. They were the only thing that kept me going as like a child was, if I leave, where does that lead them? What happens to them if I leave? So of course, when I left the household, I was scared as shit because I was like, what's going to happen to my babies? Because I was their mom per se. So that was hard on me with that. But after a year living with my aunt, I moved in with my cousin, but it was like all a mutual understanding. My aunt already had like grandkids at this point. Her and my uncle were amazing with me. I moved in with my cousin because she had 2 younger girls. It was a more lively household, and I also felt like my aunt and uncle deserved their time. I was kind of brought into the home. So I moved in with her. Teenage years, I think the usual kind of stuff, get into trouble. But I tried to focus on school as much as I could and doing what I could do. Like, I got into like theater, community service. I made fundraisers at school myself for people to donate. Like I did, I think 8th grade, first year of my new school, me and a friend, I contacted this homeless shelter in a city nearby that houses abused women and children. And I presented it in front of the principal. I was like, I'd like to put 2 boxes in each classroom, one for toiletries and stuff, and the other one, I think, for toys. And we also collected money. So we did that and brought it over to them. I tried to be involved in other things that made me feel a little more human as possible, because it was like everything else was chaos. So during that time, I was also back and forth in court a lot.
How old were you at this point?
At this point, 13 is when I moved. So 14, I moved in with my aunt, and that was high school. Back and forth with court until I was 18 years old. It was a lot of random meetings or being taken out in the middle of the day. And when I was 18 is when he was finally convicted. It was in front of a jury. I testified to the physical abuse, and then he was put away in jail for, I think, just 4 years.
For sexual or physical?
Sexual abuse, yeah. I never spoke about the physical abuse except to my therapist. She tried to file something about it, but it just, nothing was done about it.
How many years did you do?
4.
4 years.
Yeah, that was it. Out of hundreds of times it happened, he got 4 years. And they said it was because those 4 were from 4 different times that something different had happened that had worsened from the time before. So it progressively got worse. So they're like, just focus on the 4 times where something changed that was different than before. And, it was testified that however many times it happened. But so it's kind of like a take it and be grateful type of thing, it felt like. But yeah.
The rest of your teen years were smooth or no?
That was when I was 18. I was in a summer program in college at that time. And that's when the police came. They with the summons. And I was like, this is dramatic, but okay. And then I continued college for a bit. I was with, at that time I was engaged to my high school.
You mentioned, I think in the email, something happened to you at 15?
Yeah. When I was 15, I went to a friend's house. It wasn't just me, it was a bunch of girls. Like, I went to her house before, all the same people. So we went there again, and it was the first time when I ever got drunk. I was only 15. And actually, first time I ever drank, sorry. Not even just drunk. And the first time I ever smoked weed, got high. And I remember sitting at the table, starting to feel funny. And he was sitting across from me. And he'd look at his daughter and he'd be like, looking at my cup, he's like, go get her some more. And she was kind of look at him and then she would just go grab more, pour more in the cup.
Who's he?
Her father.
Your friend's father?
And I was already like a little buzzed at that point, and you have all your friends around, you're not thinking of anything bad. And I was just like, oh, I just want to pour it again. And then like he did it, like, and then he told her again. And then I was just like, little red flag, but it was very kind of subdued because I was just like, at the same time, I think of the red flag, then 2 seconds later, I'm just like, oh, what's this person doing over here? Because I was getting drunk at this point. And he's like, drink up, like that. And just like, I didn't really, because this table full of people, one person's already starting to get high. They're passing around like a bowl of weed. And then it was passed to me. I didn't know what to do. And they walked me through it. And I was like, whatever at this point. And all I remember was just like, I woke up on the bathroom floor. I had blacked out. Like, I don't remember how I got to the bathroom. I didn't like hit my head or anything. Like, I don't even know why I was on the bathroom floor. But it was like, that's how far off I was with how many drinks. The drink was, I ended up finding out it was hot damn. So it was just like cups of hot damn. I just remember like that strong cinnamon taste where I just recently in the past few years started to tolerate the cinnamon even smell. Because it was like, the second you smell it, it brings you right back. But all I remember is like being brought upstairs to my friend's bed, you know, and everyone else was hanging back downstairs. I remember just passing out or whatever. I wake up and I don't know what time it was. Room was spitting. I wake up because he was sexually assaulting me at that time. Like, I woke up to that. And I remember just trying to say something, but I couldn't because it was just like, you can't, you're incoherent. Like, I couldn't, I was high, I was blacked out. I was drunk off of like this strong liquor. Like, I was like 15, I was like asleep. Like, I didn't know. The next thing, I remember just like blacking out again. I woke up in the morning and I had remembered what had happened. Like I woke up and the first thing that hit my brain was like something happened. And it took me a moment because I was really extremely hungover. But I was like, I know something happened. I know what exactly happened, but I don't know what else, if there was anything else. Like, I just remember just one particular part that was something that was being done at that time. He was in a different room. I don't know if he's playing a video game or something like that. Because I remember hearing like games and him talking to somebody. And everybody else was like downstairs on the couches sleeping. And I remember just like grabbing my stuff, running downstairs, and just being like, I'm just going to call my cousin. I have to call her real quick. And I called her. I don't remember exactly what I said on the phone to her. I don't remember if I told her at that time or in the car. It's kind of like a haze. But I was just like, I just need to be picked up now. Because I was afraid that he was going to come down the stairs any minute too. And I just didn't know. So I said goodbye and acted like nothing happened because I was scared. I don't know what the reactions would be. I didn't know how to react. Like, just kind of felt like childhood all over again, where something happens and then you have to go about your day like nothing happened and everything's fine. You're good. You're happy, child, you're whatever. So I remember telling her at some point, and she drove me, I think it was straight to the police station we went to, where they asked a bunch of questions. I remember having to do the rape kit and whatever else. He ended up confessing because they did find DNA, but he did not get any jail time. He got, I think, like probation and had to register or something like that. I don't remember all the details. I didn't have to testify with it because he took a plea agreement.
That's a rough childhood.
Yeah.
When did you finally go out on your own?
When I was 18, I moved out, and that's when I went to college. And then I found out when November, the year I turned 18, that I was pregnant with my oldest son. And this was with my fiance at the time. Personally, I said it was my high school sweetheart. So I dropped out of college because we weren't allowed, the college I went to, we couldn't have, like, as freshmen, you couldn't have cars on campus. It was 2 hours away from home. Like, I had no idea what to do with anything. So I dropped out and moved in him with his parents. And I remember being scared to be a mom, but really excited. And it was like once he was born, it was kind of like, this is my purpose. Because loved being nurturing. And I still remember a nurse coming in the room because I was 19 when I had him. And a lot of times, many teenagers don't know how to take care of a child, understandably so. And I remember her saying, like, oh, wow, I'm really surprised. I was like, what do you mean? She's like, usually we get called in like 5 times from now. She's like, but you know what you're doing? She's like, you're swaddling him, changing him, and yada, yada, yada. I was like, oh, thank you. I didn't want to be like, because I've had years and years of practice with this. Like, I know what I'm doing. It was almost like it was already natural. Like, I just knew to swaddle, knew to hold, knew the bottle, knew the burp, like, just knew everything.
You did it when you were 9 years old.
Exactly. Until I left because my sister was 6 months or 9 months old. 9 months old when I left. So I was like, not even thinking twice about it. It's just like, this is what you're supposed to do now. It was hard, of course, but...
How many kids do you have now?
I have 2.
2.
Yeah, my oldest son is 15 now. No, 14, sorry, just turned 14. My youngest just turned 10. Both the same father. We had, we went our separate ways many years ago, and we're divorced and everything now, but it's 50-50 parenting. And they're really good kids. I always said, like, I don't know how to essentially be a good parent, but I always said, like, I knew how not to be. So I was very just nurture and open conversations. I even tell them, I was like, if I'm even doing something you don't like, say if I'm yelling too much or anything like that, I'm like, you tell me. Like, kind of like call me out on it. I don't make them, like, put them on the spot to do that. It's kind of like that whole, listen, I don't care who they are in your life. If you are uncomfortable, you say something to somebody that you trust. Whether it's me, whether it's your grandmother, whether it's whomever, you got to say something. So I've always made sure to have just like an open door, talk about what you're feeling. Even if it's about me, I'm like, I'll stop and be like, all right, let me go work on that. I'm always about just trying to be better than I was yesterday and the day before that.
It's like you're learning what to do by knowing what not to do.
Exactly. I read a lot of personal development books and podcasts, and because I just want to be a good person. And I have this, and they call it like the fear of being perceived, where I don't ever want to come across as a bad person or a mean person or like just any certain way. And I think it's due to the years of court and some of the family splitting up over it, and me being like, but I didn't do anything wrong. I'm just trying to do this, but I know you're mad at me because I'm trying to do this. So it hurt a lot. So I don't want people to judge me based upon what they just want to think about me. I want people to judge me based upon my character, who I am, not my story. Like, not a lot of people even know my background. I make it a point to, not make it a point, but I try to run past it because it's always a part of me, but I don't want it to like own me, you know?
And escaping with drugs was never a temptation?
It was at one point. I did, as like some people want to say, like experiment. This was when I was 18. I had tried cocaine a couple of times. But the second I found out I was pregnant, I was like 5 weeks pregnant. I don't even know if I did it during that time. The second I did, like that just stopped. I was even on like a sleeping medication called trazodone. I was so scared I even stopped that. I was like, nothing. I was like, no, I'm good, because it's one thing to sabotage myself, but I could never hurt another person. And if I knowingly hurt them, I would, with my brain, like, I always say I thank my brain. I don't say like, oh, I thank myself. Because the way my brain developed and took in stuff, I would never forgive myself. And I would force myself, I think, to look at what I did. A lot of people don't like to do that because it makes them understandably uncomfortable. A lot of people don't want to own up to mistakes or things they've done, because it has to make them look at themselves too and be like, admit where they are. And no one wants to be like, I'm in a bad place. Or no one wants to be like, I made bad choices and I'm a bad person. So I try to do things in a way where, what can I do to be a better person for my children? To have them have as much of a good childhood as I can. There's stuff that you can't help in terms of like, say, divorce or moving or their own struggles. But if I can be one less cause to their trouble or be that person they can turn to, like, I feel like I've done it at that point.
How do you support yourself now?
Like financially or mentally, emotionally?
Financially, I guess.
I'm currently on a medical leave from work. So I do get like payments right now, but that's due to I have many autoimmune diseases, and 2 of them are what has caused me to have to stop working at this time, which is hard to say because I've always been just like, work, do my job. Like, I love my job. Like, I just like feeling like a part of something. I like being busy. So it took a while for me to come to the decision to step back, but it was only because my symptoms were progressively getting worse, where physically could not work. I have type 1 diabetes, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, and I also have psoriatic arthritis and another autoimmune disease called relapsing polychondritis. So basically, my body likes to pretend I'm living in hell inside. I sometimes blame like nature versus nurture. I'm like, maybe it's because of fight or flight for so many years, high cortisol levels, always feeling like you have to be on the go, least inflammation. But so I'm trying to get to a place now where I'm just taking a moment to heal. Recent change in medications, I've had to do years of infusions. I'm on immunotherapy medications. I'm on steroids for now, like over a year now. A lot of different medications to try to keep the flare-ups down. Some days are good where I feel like I'm on top of the world and I'm like, throw anything at me. But then the next day I can be like, I can't even move my hands to hold a book open because they'll be so stuck and so painful, or I can't walk and every step hurts. But no matter how I feel, I'm always there for my kids. Even if I have to grab every single surface on the way to go do our bedtime routine, like I will. So financially, it's just that because they give you like 60% of what you were making. So, but it's rough for everybody right now. So I'm not going to complain. Like, I'm going to be happy for where I am and grateful because I know I could be in a lot worse. Which is sad to say because sometimes when we go through something traumatic, we're like, oh, someone has it worse. We try to downplay it. But like, it is true. I have been in worse. I could be in worse in the future. And If that happens, it happens. I'll get myself out of it like I do with everything else and kind of just lunge in that could, just keep going. But like, I'm grateful for myself and my healing and how far I've come, you know.
All right, Brianna, thank you so much for sharing your story.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I'm glad you're doing better now.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Even though Soft White Underbelly consists of a lot of videos, it's really still a photography project to me. And if you appreciate the photography, sometimes it's difficult to enjoy it when it's scrolling down the screen, which is the only option I had in this horizontal format on YouTube. So last year we came out with the first Soft White Underbelly book, which is a collection of the best portraits from the thousands of interviews I've done. Each portrait in this book is accompanied by an interesting quote from the person's interview.
Oh my God.
There's more.
Wow. These aren't as bad as I thought. I look like a witch.
I will not be reprinting this book when it sells out. So once it's gone for good. You can order yours at softwhiteunderbelly.org. $125, $150 for a signed copy. And thank you for watching.